Hey there, and welcome to the Ditch That Textbook Digital Summit, where we are all about technology and creativity and those great teaching practices, those things that your students are going to love. They're going to help you to learn, help them to learn. My name is Matt Miller, author of Ditch That Textbook. I'm the host of the summit, and we have a fantastic guest today. This is one I've really been looking forward to. So we're going to be talking to Toney Jackson, who does some pretty cool stuff in the classroom. I think you're gonna be really impressed with some of the ways that he connects with his students. I don't want to give too much away for the conversation. So Toney, I'm just going to kick it over to you. So can you tell everybody real quick who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Toney Jackson, as you heard. I've been teaching. This is my 14th year in the classroom. But I've been in and around education even before that. Before I started teaching, I actually did performances and workshops in schools dealing with literacy and creative self-expression. And I was substitute teaching while I was doing that. So I kind of got the bug for the education piece and wanted to make that more and more a piece of what I was doing. And then finally, when I was offered the position at my old elementary school, I was like, this is what it's supposed to be. This is what it really looks like. And so, as I said, I've been doing that for 14 years now. I absolutely love it. And it affords me the opportunity to use all of the things that I'm passionate about, to introduce those things to new kids every single year, to make connections and to learn from the students that are coming into my classroom. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
No, that's so cool. I'm sort of a second career educator too. I started in journalism, and then from all the writing and everything, I started pushing that into my teaching when I started teaching. So, yeah, I totally get that. So, so the poetry thing is what I wanted to start with. This is such a cool thing, and I know there's a lot that we can peel back on all of this because, if you Google Toney and you go check out his website and some of his stuff, you're gonna see poetry and hip hop and rap and all of that over everything that he does, including in the classroom. And so Toney, I was hoping, and you touched on this just a little bit, so maybe we can dive into this a little bit more. Considering how much poetry, hip hop, rap, all of that stuff is a part of your class, how did that get into your class? And, you alluded to the fact that it started way before you even were in a classroom.
Yeah, that's right. It was a part of, I feel like in my formative years as a person and as an artist, it was a part of who I was, right? And so as I grew into that, and I was teaching, I started to notice that the things that I was sharing with my students, or things that I was teaching to my students, were more effective when I was teaching it from a place where I could really enjoy it and where I could kind of open their eyes in an easier way. And the way that I was able to engage them was by being more myself. So as I didn't go to school for education. So as I'm trying to learn on the fly in my alternate route classes, I found that the best thing that was helping me to engage my students was when I was authentically me. And a big part of that was hip hop. It was poetry. And so not only did it open me up to connect with them, but it made so many curricular connections that was something that I couldn't deny. I said, this is linking. I was teaching second graders, and I said, this is linking the things that we're learning in terms of phonics, in terms of rhyme, in terms of summarizing sequence. So it really hit a lot of things and ticked off a lot of boxes. So it was right there from the beginning.
Yeah, that's cool. And maybe you can take us into your classroom just for a little bit and kind of tell us how this shows up in your classroom, like maybe with some examples, or if you've got some stories of just some ways that you've used it.
Sure. So let's go really recent. Just the other day, when we do our vocabulary practice, and we're taking vocabulary from all the different subjects. So they might be math words, they might be social studies connected words, or science words, quote unquote. And I just had a list of them that I'm going over with my students. And so I also put on music in the classroom. Sometimes I'll put on like really chill beats, or I'll just put on some classical guitar. And so this particular day, it was just some nice chill beats. And I don't remember who brought it up, but one of my students was asking me to rap about the words, or they said, "Can you put that word into a rap?" And I said, "Yeah, that would be fun. Could you do that?" And so we went back and forth a little bit, and then I ended up just freestyling, and I would just pick a card and hold it up. So it was like Foster, calm, whatever the word was, and it was just like this really fun thing that I used to do in college all the time. So that's one way. That's one way that it happens in a really improvised manner. But on top of that, I also go into whatever I'm going to be teaching at the beginning of the year, and I search through the curriculum and look for things that I can include and present using song. So I have a bunch of math songs, I have a bunch of social studies songs, language arts songs, and then those are the things that I personally create. And then there's another piece of it where when students feel that they have something they want to share, I'll sometimes work with them and then we'll co-create things, or they'll get a chance to create and share it with others. Sometimes they'll create videos, we'll produce things together. So it comes in a lot of ways.
That's so cool. All right. So I can imagine, with the practice that you've had with, with doing hip hop and freestyle and all of that stuff, that if you want to create something, if you want to freestyle it, if you've got something set up ahead of time, that's something that you can control. But when you have students do it, that's probably like creation on a whole different level, especially for you. And I wonder what that was like, kind of like releasing control, so to speak, and letting the kids do it and trying to guide them so that they're doing it without you doing it. Am I kind of on the right page here?
Yeah, I feel like you're really hitting something that the past couple of years has just washed over me, and I've had this like epiphany and this realization. I feel like the first couple of years that I was using rap, using hip hop, using rhyming, it was more about something that I was comfortable with and that I wanted to share, and a vehicle for the way that I was looking to get things across to my students. And as the years went on, it became something that would pull things from them. And so, exactly what you're talking about, it's there's like a really clear movement from just sharing something with them and then helping them to create something using whatever the medium is. And so that's what it's become now. It's become, here's what I like to do with these tools, but what can we create together?
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And I was wondering, gosh, I've got a couple of questions about this. When you work with kids, or if you encourage them, or if you just let them go, or whatever, what are some of the things that you try to do to help them have the best outcomes out of it?
So I feel like a lot of that work happens at the beginning of the year for me. Sometimes new kids will come in later on, and I'll have to start from scratch, but a lot of it, what I found is really helpful, is to establish the connection with my students. I know it sounds so uber obvious, right? Build a relationship, get close with the kids, connect to the kids. But that's it. That's the secret sauce. It's like when I find what they are comfortable with, when I find their comfort level, I'll find things that they want to share with me. I'll find ways that they prefer to share things with other people. And so what we're seeing now, or what I see a lot in my classroom now, is I may have a few kids. I may have one or two kids that want to rhyme and want to write raps. There's a student asked me just the other day if we could collaborate on something. But now it's coming in a million different ways. And so kids will say, I want to write a comic book, or I want to make this comic strip, or I want to make this YouTube video, or I want to do this. And it pours out from them. So it's really about learning who they are and learning the different modes that they like to express themselves, or what it is that they have to say, so that it's not just them trying to be a mini me, right? It's them trying to be more fully themselves and share that.
Yeah, it sounds almost like you're creating kind of like a atmosphere or a culture of self-expression, like saying, hey, this is a safe place for you to do this. I encourage you to do this. I see value in it. You don't have to be me, but whatever it is that you want to do, then I'll help you to achieve that.
Yes, 100%. And it's something that we continually work on. So we have meetings in my class. I teach fourth grade. I don't know what it looks like to do those practices in middle school or high school. But for me, I'm really thankful that I can gather my kids all on the rug and we sit in our circle, and then we decide to share, and we can take that time, and it's so valuable because it is what you're saying. It's not just connecting with me, but they're connecting with each other, and they're learning to show respect and to be inquisitive about what this person has or what this person can do, and how we can utilize those things to benefit each other.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so I want to come back to that again, but the big parallel that I'm drawing here, probably for anybody that's watching this, I know for me, if I had to walk into a classroom, I taught high school Spanish for more than 10 years. And even if I had to walk into a Spanish classroom and like freestyle rap, that would scare me to death. Okay. Totally scare me to death. I'm guessing
Yeah.
that the majority of the people that are watching this, it would probably scare them to death because they don't have the experience that you do.
Sure.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have our own version of this in us. It's like, we've been listening to you talk for a little bit about, how you bring rap and hip hop into the classroom. But for us, the rap and the hip hop may not be that. It may be storytelling. It may be gardening. It may be music. Right? Exactly.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
help us draw the parallels on this. Like, if somebody else wants to pull that talent out of themselves and help their kids to thrive with it, do you have any words for them?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot. I'm going to try not to just say what you just said. But it's it's a lot of recognizing that, right? It's not just about, for me, rap is the vehicle, right? That's what I jump into, and that's how I can deliver something to my kids. But it's not just that. Like I look at it as the difference between like rap and hip hop, right? So rap is like the vocal communication of this amazing culture, this amazing movement. But hip hop is comprised of many different tenets, many different facets, and so there's visual, there's kinesthetic, there's musical, and I feel like when you're tapping into that piece, it's like you find where it is that you connect, or what it is that you connect with. And so all of my nobody on my team rhymes, right? There's like 5 or 6 teachers that are 4th grade teachers, and nobody else rhymes. They might use a song or something that I've done, but it's exactly like you mentioned. There's one of the teachers is an incredible storyteller, and I love to read to my kids. I'm a huge reader, but I feel like that's her element. And so I feel like being able to tap into that. I used to think of it as find your talent. That's what I used to think of it as. So if you like to knit, then find a way to bring knitting into the class. I don't think that's necessarily it, though, right? I think if you can do that, that could be fantastic, and you can figure that out. But I think it's less about the specific talent, and it's more about the attitude. It's more about, what do you have a passion for? How can you communicate that passion, and how does that come across in the way that you interact? And I feel like the way that you interact with your students, the way that you put that interaction into the actual work that's being done in the classroom, those are the pieces that are going to wake all the students up. It doesn't have to be like a really hot 16 or, like this really crazy verse. It can be, the way that that you need to talk to John or, whoever it is, that's going to get them listening and get you connected.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of went through some of this in my own classroom too. Teaching high school kids Spanish. I learned a while back that they weren't excited about verb conjugation drills and long vocabulary lists.
What?
I know, crazy, right? I had to learn that the hard way, though.
Yeah.
But they were interested in stories. And so my thing was, I like to get up in front of the class and have like 4 or 5 vocab words or grammar structures that we wanted to just get reps on, just get practice on. And so we would create a character, and we would just start kind of like improvising a story together. And the first several times that I did it, A, it scared me to death. B, I didn't know what in the world I was doing. C, the stories were really bad. It was a mess, but I had all of their eyes. which was
Yes.
something that I
Yep.
didn't have before. And little by little, I got better at it. And then I started to realize that if I drew little sketches on the board, just like little stick figures, and, it wasn't even like art or anything, it was just a visual representation of the story, the kids were into it even more. And so, see, for me, it was, loving stories and being willing to add a little bit of visual art, even though it wasn't pretty. And it was a mess sometimes. I mean, but the great thing was that some days it was like magic, it was like it just showed up and everybody was enjoying it and we were laughing and we were all totally in the language and the kids were picking stuff up. And I wanted to bounce that off of you for a second too, like within your talent or your attitude or your passion, for yours in particular, have there been days where, especially at the beginning, I'll bet, where you went out on a limb and you tried it and it was a mess?
No, I can't. Of course. Yeah, no, and I would say constantly. That's what struck me as you were talking about that too. It's in talking about how I can be my authentic self with my students. A part of that is facing that fear that when you show them who you are, they won't want that, or they'll reject it in some way. I remember teaching second grade, and I'm a big puppet fan. I have a crazy love of puppets, and I love to use them in the classroom. And when I was teaching second, I use them with my fourth graders now. But when I was teaching second grade, I remember there was a little kid who said something like, "That's a baby toy." I mean, this little hard second grader had jokes, and it caught me by surprise. I wasn't prepared for it. It wasn't even one of my students. It was like another class came in. I say that to say I needed that moment, right? Because I don't want to get to the point where I think that everything that I'm going to do is going to work for everyone. And so you have to have that attitude of I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, then I'm going to figure out what to do next. So a lot of that in the beginning, but I would say a lot of that now too. It's a constant thing.
Yeah, see, I love that because this is a skill that you've sort of developed over time and practiced in the classroom and outside of the classroom and everything. And you still have moments where it just isn't great. I'll give you another example. I like doing sketchnoting. If I ever get to listen to a keynote speaker, I love to sketch what they've got to say. I do sketch notes of the messages at church. It's like, everywhere I'm always doing sketching, and sometimes it's a mess. And my kids, my own children, will sit next to me at church and will watch me, and I'll show them every once in a while what I'm working on. And then every once in a while I'll point to something. I'll be like, that was really bad. Like just this Sunday, I tried to draw a hand holding something, and it was like big, messy Mickey Mouse fingers, and they were like, it looked really, really bad. And my kids are like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay. I'll just go on to the next one." And I think that's something that I've seen and that you've seen, is that if you try something like this and it doesn't go over well, you don't die. And you don't get fired, and the kids don't lose respect for you. And chances are, I'll bet, they're probably paying attention more than if you just did regular teaching practices. Is that safe to say, you think?
I think so. I think because it speaks to what you mentioned before. It speaks to the culture of the classroom, right? If we are trying to teach the kids that failure is okay, and that failure is in fact necessary, then it has to not just be modeled, in one lesson. It has to be the way that we work, the way that we interact. And so that's what I find. We talk about it always. Mistakes are great ways to learn. It's one of the posters that we have up, and the kids will point to it and say it, and they'll be like, "Remember that." So yeah, I'm in complete agreement there. I feel like that's. It doesn't feel like bravery sometimes, I feel like even though that's the language of it, we're talking about having the courage to kind of just try things. But yeah, it's the way to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a difference. Give me your take on this. Do you think there's a difference between being brave and going and trying something and just showing up and winging it?
That's
I could see like multiple different ways to go on this. I just want to see what your reaction is to that right now.
okay. So I'm gonna talk through it as I'm digesting, right? So if I were to go ahead and wing something, yeah, okay. So I think the difference is gonna, and maybe it's an individual difference, but I think the difference goes to how much you care. For me, I'll say that. For me, it's how much I care. If I'm going out and winging something, it's I picture that as something that I'm not 100% invested in, or I'm not afraid because it doesn't matter as much to me. Whereas if I am intentionally trying something with the intent of, I'll see if this works, and if not, then I'll do something else. I'm doing that because I care, right? It's not like there. One would be for me again. One is I don't really care about this. Let me just go and be silly and do something. Versus, okay, I'm going to give this my best. If that doesn't work, it's okay. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that. Um, let's see. You were saying earlier how at first, whenever you brought poetry into the classroom, it was something that was within your own comfort zone, and it was something that you wanted to bring to the kids. And then later on, you realized it wasn't necessarily just about you, but it was something that you wanted to kind of like pull from them and encourage them to do. And I was wondering, do you think that's like a right or wrong thing? Like at first it was wrong and then it was right? Or do you think that that's like a natural progression? Like if you've got this skill, you want to try it out in the classroom, and that's a natural, okay thing to do. And that's like the beginning of your journey. And then later on, you've gotten further into that journey, and now you want to bring the kids into it because you're more comfortable with it.
Yeah. Oh. Whew.
Sorry, I didn't mean
That's
to
deep. Yeah.
make you think so much on your day off.
No, I love that. I love the reflection. The reflection piece for me, in thinking about it, I can say that if I were to see a new teacher doing that, that's how the lens that I'm trying to view this. If I were to see a new teacher that were to come on and start doing the things that I was doing, in terms of like, I'm just going to give as much of me as I can, and I'm almost like just performing for my kids. I can see the value in it. So I would probably start by saying, I recognize the value in it. This is an awesome way to do X. But I would also say, have you considered this, right? Have you thought about, once they, are into that, what you're going to use that for? Like, what are you going to use that attention for? And so I don't think it was necessarily right or wrong, because I know my intention. I know my intention was to bring them in, and considering the impact. The impact was that I had their attention. I was closer to them, so I knew there was something positive coming from it. But now in hindsight, I can look and see that I would have been able to make more of an impact if I believe I would have been able to make more of an impact, and maybe in a couple different ways, if I were doing the next couple of steps that I've learned to do now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is growth.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, I like that. That's good. Let's take a little different path on this conversation, because we've talked a lot about poetry and rap and hip hop and how that fits, and we've also talked about the bigger picture. This is a creative outlet, and this is showing a little bit of yourself. Let's take a different route, a little bit more towards using technology in the classroom.
Sure.
Because my guess is that there's probably a handful of people watching this that's like, I know I've seen this guy someplace before. And if you're trying to put two and two together and figure it out, if you don't know him from Twitter already, Toney was on a Microsoft commercial and was talking about using Microsoft products and technology in general with his students within his own creative practice and everything. And I was wondering just kind of what the technology piece looks like with you and your students.
Yeah, it's so different. I should say it's so different from where it was 3 years ago, right? I think that the commercial was in like maybe 2016, I want to say, which feels like a million years ago. And the commercial was specifically for one product. I think it was Windows 10, right? Since then, I was fortunate enough to talk to the right people and say, okay, the commercial was not connected to Microsoft Education. It was just Microsoft's like advertising arm. But through that, I said I want to learn more about the education piece, because I knew that I was at the ground level of whatever I was doing. As cool as some of the things were that I might have been able to do with technology in the classroom, I knew that there was just like, people were leaps and bounds above where I was. So I talked to, they have an amazing team over there, and I talked to them and got tied into their online community, and it really opened my eyes to a lot. And then from there, I think that changed my perspective. So within the past couple of years, my perspective on technology in the classroom is very different. And so, now things like we're a one-to-one with Chromebooks in our district, and I've learned so much about how to utilize that. Like my big thing this year has been data, has been jumping in. I'm in love with data, and as a creative type, quote unquote, I feel like that seems strange for me to say, but I'm loving it, and I'm finding the best applications or the best programs for me that I'm able to really track my students' progress. And so I'm looking at it from that sense. The technology that I'm using is from here's what I really need, and here's something that can speak to that, as opposed to the other way, like this is the coolest thing that I see out here. I'm gonna just grab that and then find a way to use it. So I'm kind of doing that in a different way now.
Yeah, that's cool. What are some of the ways you're pulling in that data and using it?
With math, we're a very data-driven district, and in New Jersey, I guess it's all over, but big data is such a presence everywhere within the district, within our district, and within the schools. And so I know that it's on the minds of my administrators. I know that it's on the minds of their bosses. It's on the minds heavily of parents, and I think we have a lot of meetings where we get together and we look at the data and we look at these numbers and we talk about what we're going to do, based on that. And then, we make some assignments, or we talk about what we're going to do together later during the year and different points throughout the year in our classes. But now I've made it a lot more personal to me. So I'm looking at very specific points based on who my students are. Instead of just as one mass, I'm looking at each student and trying to find, what do I need to track about this student? Where are they making these improvements? And that's been the biggest shift with me in terms of how I utilize data.
That makes so much sense. It's so easy for us to look at the big picture, the 30,000 foot view of how is the entire school doing, but it's so powerful when you can drill down, and if you take the time, right, to actually dive deep into individual students, which is hard, especially if, you go to some of the middle school and high school ones where they have, more than 100 students all together.
God bless them.
Right? Yeah. It's so hard. But whenever you do that, especially for some of the ones that are, marginalized or at risk, or, it's like once you get to see some of those insights, they can make a huge difference.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about those Chromebooks too.
Sure.
Because, and maybe we can take a step into your classroom again, because I know a lot of times when schools do a one-to-one initiative, a lot of times teachers get these devices, Chromebooks or laptops or iPads or whatever, and they will say, okay, now I've got all of these Chromebooks. What in the world am I going to do with them?
Right.
And it's
so true.
Right. And it's helpful sometimes just to see some examples of how people do it and what it looks like in a real classroom. So could you give us just a couple of examples of what you do with all of those Chromebooks?
Sure. So one of the things that has been kind of a theme in our classroom has been moving from consumers to being creators. And especially the past couple of years, since my students, it ties into what we were talking about before, but as my students see the things that I like to do and how I express myself, and then we talk about the different ways that they can, or ways that they might enjoy now or that they might like to try, we start talking about the things that we consume, the things that we take in. What do we watch? And my students watch YouTube videos more than they watch television, you know? So we've talked about that too. And I mean, a simple question like, well, what would your videos be about? A couple of my kids have channels, and to ask them, it blows their mind. Like they'll be so excited. I have a YouTube channel. Oh, what videos do you make? And they're like, and so that's one of the things. Long story short, we have weekly content creation. So all the students are responsible for creating at least one piece of content, and that it doesn't have to be tech involved, right? It doesn't have to be on the Chromebook. It can be. I have a lot of students in the past couple of years also that really like drawing, and so I'm learning to sketchnote. I'm an artist myself, and I love being able to scale it down. And when I do my charts, like I'm doing sketches on there, my kids pick that up too. So a lot of the kids have gotten into doing little drawings and doing comic strips, and can convey, they can show you that they can summarize without writing an entire page, right? Because they might do it graphically and then just, jot down something below the pictures. They might create a video where they recreate a story. But that's one of the main things is it's not telling them what to do and what content to make, but it's just saying, okay, you have this really powerful device in front of you. Let's think about what we're consuming first of all, and then what are we getting from that, and let's think about what we want to put out into the world. How can we show the things that we've learned and that we can share?
Yeah. You just touched on, I was getting ready to go on to something else, and you dropped something good that I had to ask you about. Yeah. You talked about getting that stuff out into the world. And yeah. I know that's something we see bandied about a lot on social media. And whenever teachers get together, I hear a lot about authentic audience and creating for an audience and everything. A lot of times it's something that a lot of us like to talk about, but either we don't do or we don't know how to do. And so I wondered for you, as far as an audience for that creation, and I know it doesn't have to be like, creating a YouTube video that gets hundreds of thousands of views, or, right. It doesn't have to be that, but what does that piece look like for you?
So right now it's one of the big initiatives in our district is, I don't know, is Future Ready a thing that's like nationwide? Future Ready schools, is that a big initiative?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So in New Jersey in particular, I know that our district has really latched onto it, and one of the big pushes is to share as much as possible. So I think at the base level, that's what it looks like, right? For the administrators to take pictures and post and share and post and share, and then teachers post and share and post and share. And then I think once we get to the classroom, we're starting to think more about not just what we're sharing or the fact that we're sharing, but why and who we're sharing it with. And so if it's a classroom that we've connected with somewhere else, if it's an organization that we feel like can help us in some way, or that we would like to learn more about so that we can help others, I think those are some of the things that we're really starting to use that connection point to. We're starting to use the technology to connect to. So with my students, we have our class Twitter account, but it for the most part, it looks like something that we enjoy doing in class. We share that out, and then anybody else that follows us, our few followers can see that. But we've been talking about the global goals and talking about those global partnerships and saying, well, what's the next step beyond this? So not just we want people to see it, we don't just want eyes on it, but what do we want to do with that attention? I don't mean to take too much time on this, but fine. There's a guy named Gary V. Have you ever heard of Gary V?
Gary Vaynerchuk. Yes, I'm familiar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Gary talks a lot about attention and attention as currency, and I feel like that to me hits so deeply in terms of this context, right? In education, because that's what we trade in the classroom. No matter what you do, whether it's elementary, whether it's kindergarten, whether you teach one subject in the high school, we're trading in attention. And what we do with that attention is very important. How we get that attention is not going to look the same. One way that I get it is by sometimes it might be rapping, right? But when we make those connections, when we form those relationships, that's one of the things that's going to be the groundwork for getting that attention in, and then we decide what are we going to do with it. And I feel like that's what I'm still grappling with right now, is what is the best way to use that attention, since we have this technology, since we're connected to so many different people. What's the best way for us to use that? And I talk with my kids about that sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. I wanted to take another direction on this too. We've talked about, poetry and self-expression. We've talked about some technology, some of the different things that you've done in your classroom. Yeah. And I wanted to get your take on that related to equity too. Like, making sure that no kid is marginalized, that everybody has a fair and, equal education, that nobody's being, pushed aside. And I get the feeling that several of these things that you do have strong ties back to that, to make sure that every voice is heard, that everybody, that everybody gets the equal opportunities. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. The digital divide is very, very real, right? And the digital divide is just an extension of that divide that has been there, the many divides that have been there, and are kind of underlying that. And so, I wish that it was something. The big struggle that I have there is that I know how passionate I am when it comes to that concern. And I think that there's a lot of attention in the education community about that concern. But what I don't see is, I don't see it being dealt with. I think it's we have to be really careful not to deal with it in a Band-Aid on a bullet wound kind of situation, right? Like the answer is not just to get more hotspots. The answer is not just to, get more devices. I really think that, when we talk about equity of voice, it has to be, who are we listening to, and what voices have we not been hearing? We have to reckon with why we haven't been hearing those voices. And I think that, if we have solutions and answers for parts of the problem that are in the front, in terms of what programs can we use, what devices can we use, I think that's great. But I think all of that, the underlying stuff needs to get touched. And I think how did we get here is a piece that we definitely need to speak to. And those conversations, I don't know. I feel like I see a lot of teachers who are really passionate about putting those ideas forward and fighting that fight. But I just don't know what it looks like once it gets inside the school building. I don't know what it looks like when it's a district-wide situation. So for me, I think seeking out those voices and following the voices that are not just speaking about it, but are from those communities, is huge. Like Educolor, hashtag Educolor on Twitter, is a massive, massive wealth of important voices and important people who are doing the work. Clear the List is another one. There's tons of them. I think the fact that there's so much that we can find and go into is what is going to help us ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if if this is a piece of it too. You were talking about the voices that we're listening to. Yeah. It just so happens on your Twitter account, this is the pinned tweet that I think fits so well to this. And you wrote, "Teachers and admins, bring students to the table. All the students, all the tables. Whatever the issue is, if it involves them, involve them." I thought that fit so well into what you were just talking about.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean it. It bothers me that I don't know how to make that happen faster or make that happen better. Within my own school, where other people are, but I know that it's not a thought that's just mine, which makes me feel better. And I know that other people are in that space, but I just think about all of the issues that we have with students. They end up being conversations between adults,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
In terms of who we're hiring, in terms of making curriculum, in terms of decisions about grading, decisions about what technology to use, decisions about the school day, the school buildings. It's so rare from what I've seen. I mean, people can let me know what they see. From what I've seen, it's very rare that the students, the people that are affected, are a part of a lot of those decisions. And so that's what I meant by that.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. I had one more sort of lingering question that relates to kind of lots of the stuff that we talked about that I haven't gotten back to. I think this will
Cool.
be a good place for us to wrap this up. Because a lot of what we talked about through most of the conversation has been, finding your passion, finding your talent, finding whatever it is that you want to share and making it a part of what you do. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of times people have this one reaction to that, and they go, that's all good and well for you because you're a creative person. You do all of this stuff and you're so creative, and I'm not a creative person like that. If somebody came to you with that reaction, what would be your response to
I laugh because I think it's safe to say this. I laugh because that's like I feel like that's like a conversation I have with my wife.
Oh, really?
And my wife is a teacher. She teaches first grade, and we taught together for a couple of years on the same team. But we've been in different buildings for the past couple of years. But I spend a lot. I'm like a geek for this. I love this stuff. I love digging into it, and I put a lot of energy and a lot of time into finding new ideas and finding things that I think will help to refine my practice and as a great teacher, she's a great teacher, but she doesn't put the same time and energy in the same place that I do, right? And I feel like so when she comes to me with a problem, I'm really fast. I used to be really fast. I'm a little better now, but I throw like 30 things at her and be like, well, you could always do it. Why don't you try to? You should try. Have you done a lot? And I could just see it, kind of overwhelm her. So I think that was kind of like a wake up call for me, because I don't know if maybe I was coming across like that on social media too. I think a lot of people have a tendency to do that sometimes. Somebody will, complain about something, or somebody will ask for a suggestion, and then we think about it from what we would do.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to take it from an approach where it's, we talk about empathy with the kids. I try to, find the issue that she's having and see it from her perspective. One of the big things in my classroom is like, think about it from multiple perspectives. So that's what I'm practicing now. And I would say, if someone were to come to me in that situation, I would try to be really, really genuinely thinking about what their circumstance is, what their situation is, what things do work for them, what troubles they're having, where some of those things stem from, because I don't think it's an easy fix. And I think, it's easy to think that when we do something that works for us, like, obviously this will work, or the data shows that if you just do this, that'll work. But I think it takes that time. You have to step back and you have to think, I'm thinking about it for me as a teacher, but I have to think about it from where this person is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also that courage piece to it too, I think. Like, even if you've got the practice and you think you know what you want to do, there's still that courage of taking that first step and actually doing it and going out on faith that it's going to work, right?
Oh, yes. And I would add to that, I feel like the two most important things that teachers need, even though this is a gross oversimplification, is trust and respect, right? If you trust me and respect me, that I am a competent teacher, then you're going to see, I'm going to give you my absolute best. And so I think that, the one piece is the courage from the teacher to be able to try something new, try something different, to admit that, you, even if you've done it this way, for a very long time, there's another way to do things. But we need the support. We need the support because we can't be scared to try something new. I think a lot of teachers are afraid to try new things, not because they're cowards, but because their administrator, if they knock on the door, they might want to see them, on this page at this time.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, I don't want to step on any toes. I want my evaluation to go well. So I think that you're spot on. I think that in terms of courage, that shouldn't be viewed as a brave act, right? It shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to be like, super courageous and feel like a superhero because you're like, well, I'm going to do what my kids need. That should be something that, administrators are making teachers feel like, we got you. We need you to be in this place. And this may not be what I expected, but I'm going to trust you that, it's something that you believe will work. And if it doesn't, we'll find a way to fix it.
Mm-hmm. Boom. I think that's a great place to end it right there. That's fantastic. Cool. Toney, this has been amazing. This is just exactly what I know. Yeah. You want to go for a little while longer? I got another hour, I'm sure everybody just want to sit and listen to us talk,
That was awesome.
Yeah. So, if people are watching this and they want to connect with you or they want to see some of the stuff that you've done. I also noticed on Amazon that you've got a bunch of books that you have written and put up on Amazon too.
Yes. So right now, so I started a 100-day project. There's I don't want to sound like I'm like plugging everything, but
nope,
there's
that's fine. You're good.
Okay, cool. There's something called the Freedom Journal. And it's this guy, John Lee Dumas.
Yeah.
It's an awesome productivity journal. And I did it once before when I started a podcast a few years ago, but I'm doing it now to redo a book that I wrote. So I wrote a book called I'm Jack, I'm Black. It's still on Amazon currently. But I have a great friend, Catherine Roy, who is an illustrator and an author, and she is amazing coming in and talking to schools. And she's been giving me some great insight. So I'm redoing all of the illustrations in the book. I'm doing the cover over and everything. And I have 100 days to finish that and also another book that I'm writing.
Nice.
So there's a book that I have called There's a Button in My Belly. And that's poetry. You can find that one on Amazon. The other ones are going to be taken down, and I'm going to be redoing them. But yes, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, cool. And so, if they want to connect with you, where's the best place to do that?
Twitter's pretty good. Yeah, at He Rhymes With Me on Twitter. At He Rhymes With Me on Insta. The website is up, but I'm not like that. That's one area where I need to get better. But ToneyJackson.com, there's some stuff up there that I probably don't even remember is up there. I never checked. Yep. But yeah, hit me up on social.
Nice. One of the great Twitter and Instagram handles that exists, if you ask me. I think that's such a good fit for what you are. So, all right.
Thank you, man.
Toney, this has been amazing. Thank you so much, man.
This was great. Thanks for the invitation, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for watching this video and for being a part of the Ditch That Textbook Digital Summit. We will see you on the next video.